Hello, everyone. It's time for update number 3 from 2026. Let me tell you the backstory on this one. There are two different moments that happened that really made me start thinking about this. One moment was I was listening to a podcast with somebody that is a very intelligent and pretty well-known person who kept arguing that there are no use cases that AI tools or agents were really providing any big ROI. Just kept saying it over and over again. It's not providing any ROI. And then there was another person that was supposedly a real thought leader that was talking about the fact that they just didn't think that AI was something that was really that valuable at this point. And it's created this huge disconnect from me, who working in the field with organizations is seeing all kinds of use cases, seeing a huge amount of value being created with AI. And so I got to thinking about, well, I mean, obviously people that don't use it with their own hands, people that don't work in organizations that are actually doing a great job of getting an ROI from these tools, they just haven't seen it. And I started thinking about, to me, AI is a superpower. Actually, it's a superpower in many different forms that we'll talk about, but a bit of an invisible superpower. We'll talk about this. You can see the results from it, but you can't always see it. And so, like a lot of the superheroes, that if you just see the superheroes, in their human form, you would have no idea. If you see Clark Kent, you don't know that Clark Kent is Superman, right? If you saw Tony Stark, you don't know that Tony Stark is Iron Man, right? Even Spider-Man, right? There's so many superheroes that you can't see necessarily the superpower until they start enacting it. And to me, it is a bit like what we have with AI. It is a bit of an invisible superpower, which causes a lot of people then to act like that it isn't real, or that it's not something that they would be able to use. So that was really the genesis of wanting to do this, of, hey, let's talk about organizational value, right? And what are different types of organizational value. So to understand kind of where I'm going to come from today, and really just if you want to think about AI strategy in general, then it's important to understand these kind of 3 layers of value. So in an organization today, anyone who's using AI models is amplifying their capabilities. So if you just look at it from human advancement, like we have a workforce, we've given our workforce, I don't care anything, Copilot, Claude, ChatGPT, like any type of AI tool, then that workforce has more capabilities than what they've ever had before. And so if you say, well, what's the value we're getting from the workforce? You'd say, well, we're getting higher quality work in some cases, we're getting faster completion times, and then we're getting much better problem solving, right? So those are the things that we're getting every day today. Now, can everybody in the workforce use AI effectively? No, they cannot. It's still early days. But we already, I guess it would be ridiculous for the people that I hear that say, well, I can't understand how AI is providing any value. Like, well, then you clearly don't understand what's going on in the workforce. By the way, whether you're providing AI tools or not, because people have all the ability in the world to go get their own AI tools or use free tools to be able to do all of these things at organizations. So that's the first layer, is just the advancement of human skills. All right, second layer, the ability to automate or to build many automations to help out with operations. And so this is where you would say we have agents, right? Or we have multi-agent systems, or we have a swarm of agents. In other words, we're not talking about one automation, we're talking about building for larger organizations hundreds or thousands of automations. Now, those automations can work together, they can work with humans, they can work alone, right? But the goal, if you just think about value of that mid layer of just automating, it's lowering costs, speeding up operations, and improving quality. And those are all the value outcomes of this middle layer. And then you have a top layer. I think there's a top layer, which is customer-facing AI tools. Whoever your customers are, whether those are patients, members, right, customers, clients, whatever we call it, I'll just generically call it customers. We have customer-facing AI tools. And the value there is, all the capabilities that might be built into any of your products or services that you're delivering, or just help, right? Helping a customer to be able to consume your service, or providing more services to the customer, or just using AI tools to help amplify or improve the relationship with customers, because we're using AI tools so that we know them better, we can build a better relationship with them. So in every organization, I believe there's these three completely different areas of value that we should be focusing on. I honestly think there should be a separate strategy for each one of these three. And I think every organization could be working on all three of these at the same time, and they should. We shouldn't just work on using tools for people's advancement and say, oh, well, we'll get around to automations. We should already be getting around to automations. There's already good enough technology out in the market. It's getting better all the time that we should already have that automation strategy. All right. Now, we're going to use a lot of metaphors from the comics world, a lot of superhero references. If you do not understand anything about superheroes, you don't go to any of the movies, you never read comics, I'm sorry for you, but also you will just have to ignore when I make references with characters, or if I talk about DC, right, which we have DC here on the bottom, or I talk about Marvel Universe, which you have up here. And then most people think there's nothing else, but there is. This is a collection of characters from the Image brand, and those are all non-DC, non-Marvel, but many of these you've heard of. So again, if you're not familiar with anything having to do with superheroes, this will still be interesting and fun for you. It's just more interesting and fun for those of us who actually understand superheroes. All right, so we have layers of superpowers. Now, the way that I like to think about this is there is a bit of a math equation. So I'm going to just take banks. And if I say a bank or a credit union, what is the value across these three layers? I'd say, well, 50% of the value that they get would be from just advancing the humans. All right. Then I would say maybe 30% of the value is from the automation layer that they can build, right? Or all of their agents, their bots, their GPTs, whatever the automations are. And then I'd say maybe 20% of the value is using AI tools that are more customer facing. So this changes depending on what kind of industry you're in. If you are in, if you're a law firm, if you're a manufacturer, if you're a franchisor, if you're a construction company, right? It's probably a little bit different math. But it is good to understand from a strategy standpoint. This is where we're going to get value from this thing we call AI, and it will be in different ratios depending on what kind of industry you're in. And we should be working towards pulling all of the value from these percentages. So there you go. That's a way to understand what we're going to be talking about today. Now, so I in the title, I talk about invisibility, right? The invisible asset. In other words, you can't see it. So for example, I'm going to talk a little bit today about effective IQ. All right. Effective IQ means what is your IQ after you work with AI tools? So you have a human IQ, right? Whatever that number is, let's just say you have a 110. Right, you have an effective IQ based on how good the AI tools you are working with are, how strong you are at partnering with those tools, co-working with them. If we look at your output's not a 110. Your effective IQ could be a 130, 140, 150 maybe if you're fantastic. And your effective IQ can grow over time. We'll come back to that concept. But when you have a higher effective IQ, it's a bit of an invisible asset. You can't see it by looking at you. Like you can't look at me now and go, well, since he got a hold of AI a few years ago, his effective IQ is a lot higher. You can probably see it maybe in the slides that we're presenting or the concepts, But again, the outcomes you can see, right? So the outcomes of a higher effective IQ or the outcomes of co-working with AI are things like better decisions. We'll talk more about that. Being able to be much more innovative, being very prescient about strategies. So in other words, being better than your competitors at designing a strategy, managing risk at a very high level, whatever that risk is, being better at managing that risk than the average person, stronger relationship skills, because you're using AI to amplify your capabilities to build better relationships. And I mean, this could be everything from being able to keep track of what somebody is doing that you're wanting to have a relationship with in a better way, understanding how to buy them better presents. Right? There's all kinds of things you can do with AI to build better relationships. All right, faster throughput. You can get more done in a shorter amount of time and still hold on to the higher quality. And then finally, faster performance, right? Just the ability to work at pace that you've never been able to work with before. So this is all the value that we can derive. You can kind of see the output, you can see the value, you just can't always see the invisible asset. Again, I think about Superman, just looking at Superman, even as Superman the character, you do not know everything Superman can do. You do not know Superman has X-ray vision. You do not know that Superman can fly or has the ability to blow cold air and freeze something. You can't see any of that. You can only see what happens with the output. And that's a big thing that I observe about being elite with AI. You can't see it when you walk in the organization. You just see it in the output, which in a lot of cases is starting to be higher profitability and better financial results. All right. Let's finish up the conversation on effective IQ. I show this slide a lot to people. I think it's a really important concept. And so I just want to unpack that effective IQ statement. So when we talk about IQ or intelligence, we have to define what intelligence is. So intelligence is made up of four things. It's made up of knowledge, it's made up of reasoning, it's made up of innovation or creativity, again, being able to think in white space, what other people have never thought of before. It's self-learning, so the ability to be able to understand what you don't know, and then the capacity to go learn more. These four things make up intelligence, what we even measure when we measure IQ. And so this allows us to start thinking about things like, okay, well, where is the average synthetic mind? Where's the average human mind on the scale? And we can say, all right, today, the average human mind is still a little bit in front of the average model, right, or synthetic mind. Mostly, I would argue, because humans are very good at reasoning and creativity, and it's a hard thing for a synthetic mind to learn, but they will. Now, here's where we get into the effective IQ. The important thing to understand today is the blue line. The mixture of a synthetic mind with a human mind, hybrid mind if you want to call it that, right? But the mixture of those two, and you look at the output, and the output on an intelligence scale would be the blue line. And then you say, okay, well, what's going to happen over the next handful of years? Say, well, the average synthetic mind is surely going to get smarter. And what that does is I believe you'll see an impact of the average human mind will get a little smarter because of all of its work with AI. By the way, I do not believe at all the studies or articles coming out that say working with AI makes you dumber. I don't believe that at all. I think that is it's a very negative kind of headline that people love to put on, because then a bunch of people click on it, and then a bunch of people that don't know what they're talking about, they parrot these articles without really understanding what's going on or what the research is even showing. So can you find a specific type of person in a specific type of situation that is getting quote unquote dumber? Yes, you can. But if you look over the breadth of all humanity using AI tools, then you do not see that it has that same impact on everybody else. Just a small group. but darn, it does get headlines. It does get views. So anyway, long and short, as the synthetic mind gets more powerful, those of us that are heavy AI users, our implied or our effective IQ just continues to go up. And so that's a very good reason to be a fantastic AI coworker, because this is the outcome that you get, is a higher effective IQ. All right, so it gives us a good place to start talking about superheroes. So our first superhero is Oracle. And so in each of these slides, what I'm going to do is give you the background on Oracle. I am not going to read it to you. You can read the background if you don't know the background on this character while I continue to talk. So in this case, Oracle has, because of what's happened to her in her past, has become somebody that uses intelligence and has built an intelligence hub, so to speak, to be able to continue to be a superhero and to help other superheroes. And so Oracle has done what we would call intelligence mastery. She has mastered the power of sheer intelligence as her superpower. And so we wanted to use her as an example to go on from this effective IQ conversation and talk about intelligence mastery. What does that mean? Now, I will tell you, intelligence is an asset. All right, it's an asset. It has been in human minds for thousands of years. It's in human minds in different rates, different types of intelligence, but it's been stored and delivered from human minds. Today, we have the ability to manufacture intelligence. We can manufacture it and hold it in technology. And you got to let that sink in. Like, we have the ability to train AI tools, not just the general training that you get with Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot or anything else. We have the ability to continue and customize the training and the education of these tools. We have an ability to manufacture intelligence. And that is a powerful thing that any of you have, any of your organizations. Now, let me tell you something about manufacturing intelligence. You have the capability, but do you have the insight? Do you have the foresight, the courage, the will to manufacture intelligence for your organization? That's the interesting question. Now, even though when we talk about value, I would say that it's not always going to be the biggest organization who wins in the market. It's going to more and more be whoever is the smartest or most intelligent organization. And so if you want to know what we're playing for in terms of value, all of you, regardless of what size you are in your market, you have the potential to be the smartest, the most intelligent organization in your industry. And that's something that you should shoot for. And you don't have to do it anymore by hiring expensive people or, just trying to get intelligence into your human beings. You can now have some intelligence in your human beings. You can manufacture and store intelligence in your systems. So you start thinking about things like, okay, well, if we can manufacture intelligence and we become masters of this asset, right, you have to start asking, all right, well, what would be the results of your team if everyone had higher effective IQs? And that's an interesting question that I'd love for you to be able to see, right? So if you think about being able to build intelligence into agents, because we have built intelligence into our human beings for years, but now we have these other automations, right? They go and do tasks, and we can build intelligence into those automations and hold that information there as opposed to holding it in human beings. And that's an interesting thought, right? If this is true, of course, that you can manufacture intelligence, anybody can of any size, and that the smartest teams win, it does make you ask the question about leveling of the playing field. So what is going to happen out in the world now with smaller organizations that get very good at manufacturing high-end intelligence and they really do become the smartest in their industry. All right, well, let's go on to another character. So in this case, we are going to talk about Rogue. Okay, and Rogue might not be a character that everybody knows, but here's the background on Rogue. Rogue is one of the mutants that is in the X-Men universe, which of course is Marvel. X-Men is interesting because it introduces this concept of mutants. And the mutants all have different skills. And then there's humans who are not mutant, right? So there's regular human beings. And they have, in a lot of cases, very mixed emotions about the mutants. So in some cases, when you understand X-Men, there are a lot of people that want to get rid of the mutants. They would kill all the mutants, or they would ship them all to an island and stick them all on an island because they don't like the power that the mutants have versus just regular humans without mutant capabilities. In the world of analogies, think about that in organizations, where you have people that have been there for 20, 30 years who now are seeing, I'll pick a young person, right? A young person gain all kinds of power through using AI tools. And now the person that's been there for a long time hates it. They hate AI, they hate that person, right? They don't like any of this because in their mind, that person's almost cheating, right? They're a mutant in that, well, they're not just using their own brain anymore. Like they're using a synthetic intelligence to help them. They're using almost like a mutant capability, right, in their mind. So I find that interesting, the analogy of what happened in the X-Men series with mutants, because the mutants also helped save the world. And that was the problem, right? For the regular humans that hated mutants, you hated them right up until the time aliens attacked the Earth, and it was the X-Men that saved the planet. And so again, interesting analogies in companies with people that are high-end AI users. You know, I think about, not right now, the AI technology of skills, right? Building skills, markdown files, right? There is a protocol now invented by Anthropic called Skills. And it is an ability to store skills in files, right? So in technology, store skills in files so they could be repeated over and over again. So you can go find whoever is best at a specific skill in the organization, and then you can gather both samples of that skill, the methods of how that skill gets played, you know, what that knowledge even is. You can put it all into a file, and now you have a skill that any other human can access and any agent can access. So you can create a skills inventory. This is not science fiction. This is all here today. You just have to build it. You just have to put your architecture together to do this. I think about it a little bit. If you've been around technology, you've been around for a while, knowledge management. We've had knowledge management for years. But now we actually have skills management, not just knowledge management, where we can actually store skills in an inventory, and then anybody can use that inventory. All right, so let's think about that kind of out in the practical world. So any organization has the ability today, it's not that hard, it's not even that expensive to go build an AI skills library. So when you start thinking about that, you'd say, all right, well, then we want the most skilled person in the organization at any one task. Maybe it's regulatory control knowledge. Maybe it's how to build a PowerPoint. It could be any skill, right? Let's have the most skilled person work with someone to create the skills.md files to be able to capture how that skill gets done. So that's a good thing to do, is just to, hey, let's take some of our most skilled people and let's transfer those skills out of their minds, and let's also encode those skills. You also today can start buying skills from a marketplace or just downloading skills from GitHub, for example. Now you have to be careful about security, because you don't want to grab a skill that's got something, some malware built into it. But there are thousands of skills available for free out on the internet. So for example, we downloaded a skill that's called the Humanizer, and that skill can take any AI text and it can humanize the text so it doesn't look like an AI wrote it. So, you know, that was a skill we just downloaded and we just have it now. And it takes no time to do that. And it was actually free because it was open source. I am absolutely sure that we will have companies, startups that will create skills marketplaces. We know OpenAI is even talking right now about building skills and agents that people can just rent. So we know that you can create your own skills, we can buy skills, we can download skills. Once we do that though, then we have to start figuring out how do we educate our people on how to use these skills. Because once we have a skills inventory, you got to know how to prompt in such a way that you would trigger the use of that skill. Or you have to understand how to build an agent so the agent could call a skill and use that skill. So there's a little bit of education that we would need to do on the skills inventory, what's in it, how to use it. Then we've got to really control that skills inventory. And when I say control it, it's everything from understanding, how do we make sure we maintain the quality? Who owns each one of the skills? How do we make sure the skills are constantly getting better and better and better? How do we use these skills to do rapid onboarding of new people that come into the organization, right? So there's a lot to think about as far as the oversight of the skills inventory. But this is a great example of an AI tool that gives you an invisible set of power. Would anybody looking at your organization see that you have built an AI skills inventory? Most people wouldn't understand that. So the answer to the question is we're just using Keynote and slides that we built and animated. All right. Let's go to the next character and the next skill. So in this case, we're going to go DC Comics. And Batman is the perfect character to describe what we want to talk about next. So Batman, again, is not a superhero that is mutant or has some specific powers that Batman has. Bruce Wayne is just a human being, very intelligent human being, but just a human being. A bit like Iron Man, with the ability to build lots of different equipment or weapons or things like that that can help him. But if you really unpack Batman's specific skill, it is hyper-analysis. Batman has an ability to analyze better than anybody in the room. Analyze situations, analyze metals. In the Bat Cave, you see kind of the magic of what Bruce Wayne can do, which is all about being able to analyze situations, the villains that he has to fight against. So he is the master of analysis. And so in this case, a great example of an invisible skill that I'll just call hyper-analysis. The ability to look at data and do analytics at a level that is far past anything that we are doing today. So analysis creates visibility into the truth with a capital T. And that's an important thing I want you to understand, is the whole purpose of analytics is to be able to find the truth with a capital T, right? I mean, the truth of any situation. That's the purpose. Now, we use different types of analytics, right? So we use diagnostic analytics or predictive, prescriptive, descriptive. So we have different forms. We have different types of visualization, right? But at the heart of it, analytics or analysis is all about finding the truth of something. In organizations, I guess the big picture thing I would say to you is that most organizations, they do not understand the truth of many things. Many things about why people buy their products and services, why they don't buy their products and services, how happy are they with you, how much work are any of your employees getting done, how creative really is the organization, how well is your strategy working. Right, there are a ton of different things that organizations, they do not know today. They do not understand the truth. And when you can't see the truth of what's going on, then that injures your decision making. And we'll get to decision making later, right? But if you can't analyze, then you can't make great decisions. So hyper analytics or hyper analysis is just absolutely critical as far as creating value, and AI is wonderful at letting us do that. So AI has an ability to understand and learn from massive amounts of data in real time. Batman was very good at this, by the way. Batman could monitor and do surveillance on huge amounts of things in Gotham all at one time. And so he could see things that other people couldn't see. He could be aware of things because of the analysis that he did. So that's one of the big things AI can do, is watch over massive amounts of real-time data in an organization and see things that we wouldn't see. So what is it seeing, right? Patterns, anomalies, right? It's watching data flow, AI tools are. It's looking at various data stores and comparing things. And then it's able to see what you can't always see today. Now, as much money and time as we've spent on data and analytics and software sitting on top of the data sources and hiring data scientists, I would still say we're not 25% down the road of what we can really do with analytics and with analysis. All right, we also can use AI tools to be able to see correlations or causations in ways we never have before. And I'll give you an interesting example of this. So when we build AI tools, we often use knowledge graphs. And if you're not familiar with a knowledge graph shows relationships between different pieces of data, different things that we are storing. So if you visualize a knowledge graph, it looks something like this. And so there's a bunch of little lines between every one of these nodules. In this case, I'm looking at a revenue knowledge graph. And the revenue knowledge graph is, it's got stakeholders, it's got entities and companies, it's got sources for the information and the signals, right? The green circles you see here are signals that might be saying that a prospect is ready to buy. All right. So this is a knowledge graph where we are visualizing a bunch of sales and marketing data. This knowledge graph is live. Like, you can actually click on things in this knowledge graph and then they will show you the relationships, or they will show you what the signals are. Now, I just show you this to give you an example of analysis, of new ways that AI can help us look at relationships across everything we're doing with driving revenue, and be able to dive deep into people, organizations, different signals, to try to see, are there actions that we should be taking? I have a feeling in the world of, hey, we've always had reports and dashboards. I think this is going to be a new way that once people get used to using and working with knowledge graphs visually, I think it's a new way people will be able to do analysis. All right, then the last thing that I will say is the ability to send out agents, right? So analysis has a lot been done by a human looking at a report, a human looking at a dashboard, a human doing a query, right? So a human being trying to gather knowledge from data. That's kind of how analysis has been done. But we do have a new ability now to send out agents and to have agents spiral through all kinds of data, looking for things for us, right? Or analyzing data in real time outside the organization, inside the organization, and the agents bringing us interesting patterns, anomalies, correlations that we wouldn't have seen before. So that's just some things to think about when we talk about an invisible skill of understanding how to use AI tools to do analytics at a level we never have before. All right, so this is honestly one of my favorite characters. So I am a big Doctor Strange fan. I like the actor who plays Doctor Strange in the movies, but I also just like Doctor Strange's backstory, and I like what Doctor Strange can do. And so one of the things that's most interesting, if you're not familiar with the characters, Doctor Strange has access to magic. And so he's a very powerful sorcerer. But if you look at how he used the magic, and we go to one of the most important Avengers movies, right, Infinity War movie, there was a fight against Thanos, who again, we're going to get to later, right? So in that fight against Thanos, Doctor Strange actually went out into the future using the Time Stone and was able to figure out that there were 14 million possible futures of what could happen from where they were sitting right at that moment. And out of the 14,605,000 possible futures, there was only one that was going to be a successful outcome. What I would say, I underlined it here, this concept that Doctor Strange was the architect of optimal outcomes, because Doctor Strange could use his magic to go look into the future and see a lot of different outcomes and then pick out which one would be the best. What do we have to do today to get that outcome? Well, that is a lot what we would do when we say decision science, right? So what is decision science? An ability to use decision making, AI-driven decision making, to be able to make the best decision on the fly about any situation. And so, again, Doctor Strange, great ability, great character for being able to make those kinds of decisions. So let's just look at this, unpack it for just a second. I would argue that every day in your organizations, there are hundreds or thousands of decisions being made. The vast majority of those decisions are made by human beings. Sometimes there's decisions that need to be made and they're not, and that's a problem. And then there are a number of decisions being made and they're wrong. I think if you really kind of step back and understand, again, one of the more powerful things that AI can do, if AI can improve just 10% of decisions, that's it, just 10. Think about the impact of that in organizations. Because every time an organization makes a wrong decision, there's a cost, there's a consequence, sometimes major, sometimes small. And like I said, every day in organizations, there are hundreds to thousands of decisions, a chunk of those being made wrong, some of those not being made at all, again, as I said. So I love the concept of decision science, the ability to, either predict because you're using predictive analytics, or you're using diagnostic analytics to look backwards, but the concept of using AI tools to see more, and make better decisions. Now, when you are using AI for decision science, there's some advantages. AI is unemotional and generally unbiased about decisions. It will just make the decisions off of the facts as it knows them. It can make thousands of decisions a minute, all day long. The decisions are usually made on much larger amounts of information than what humans make decisions on. Humans make a lot of decisions just off of instinct and experience. All right, AI tools will always follow decision governance. So in other words, when it comes to regulatory control or any type of governance around decisions, humans will often skirt around it. They'll find ways to make decisions that they want, no matter what the rules are. Obviously, AI tools won't. They will follow governance every single time. And then the whole fact that today, AI tools, they can learn from their outcomes, just like human beings. So when we make bad decisions as human beings, we go, okay, I'm not making that decision again. In fact, we overcorrect in a lot of cases. But an AI tool can learn that it made a decision, it got a bad outcome. What did it base the decision on? How might it make a better decision tomorrow? So there's a lot to like, is my point, about having AI tools that can either make decisions on their own or help you make a decision. All right, the question in chat, we'll give you a link here in a few minutes where you can download the slides. So good question, but just hang on. We'll give you the link here shortly, and then anybody who wants a copy of the slides can have them. All right, so decision science, I just wanted to go through this quickly with you. It's just a good visual. So when we talk about architecting the optimal outcomes, right, and decision science, you have to look and say, all right, well, when people are making decisions, what's the format for that? So if I do an XY axis and say, okay, we got accuracy and quality of the decision, confidence in the decision going across the bottom, and then we can say, all right, well, there are a number of ways that humans make decisions. The first is the absolute worst, which is no decision. You need to make a decision, you just don't make it. All right, that's the worst. And then the next level up from that is just making a decision on instinct and experience. No data, right? It's just, here are my instincts, here's my experience. Depending on who you are, maybe this is right, but they're going to be wrong a decent amount of the time. Then you have, okay, well, I have 2 or 3 facts, right? So I have 2 or 3 facts, now I make a decision. And then for humans, the best case scenario is I'm using trustable data and I have all kinds of factors I'm looking at, now I make a decision. That's best case for humans. That's if we're working alone. All right, now you say, okay, well, AI-human collaboration, next step up would be a recommendation engine, an AI that's saying, hey, here's your next best purchase, or here's the movie you might like, right? Or here's a suggestion of what you should do to be healthier. So you have AI tools that are recommendation engines, would be the next level up. Then you have AI tools that are looking at massive amounts of data and being able to recommend things to you that in the vast majority of cases, they're correct. You're just going to probably take their advice because they are seeing so much more than what you're seeing when they are making their decisions. Then you get into the fully autonomous AI decision making. And so there's 2 steps here. One is just the fully autonomous AI, right? I'm a lending engine, right? I approve loans in 5 minutes. I'm not using any humans to approve these loans. I'm a fully autonomous loan engine. And then you get into an autonomous self-learning engine. So it helps make decisions, but it also watches all of the decisions it made, looks for bad outcomes, and continually improves its intelligence. So it makes better and better decisions. So there you go. This is kind of decision science, right? Going from bad or no decision all the way up to some of the best decisions you could make. And then you can start plotting and say, okay, well, in an organization, right, we make all these kinds of decisions. Where are they on this curve? Right? How much AI are we using? And I would say leaders can really plot some of the critical decisions in every department and start looking at, well, what are we using today to make these decisions? And how can we add more science to this? All right, let's move along. Next character, Red Tornado. If you're not familiar with Red Tornado, the interesting change here is not a human. Okay, Red Tornado is an android. And we have a few superheroes that are androids or AIs, right? The AI in an android. And so in this case, Red Tornado has the ability to create cyclones and vortexes. But again, the big thing to understand is that this is an android superhero, synthetic, all right? Not human. So from an invisible skill standpoint, let's talk about the skill of being the apex automator, almost like the apex predator, right? If you're going to be the apex automator, that means in your industry, you are absolutely the best at being able to automate something. And in every industry, there is an apex automator. So, just a few thoughts around that. You would have a clear understanding of all of the processes in every department. So you have a process inventory documented in every department. You have clear understanding of what your processes are. Once you do that, you're going to have to create a way to, if you're going to build a bunch of agents or build a bunch of automations, how do you inventory those? How do you have governance over those? What kind of structure do you store those in? Right? There has to be a structure to hold all of your AI automations. You're going to have a team or people on your team that know how to build these automations. Now, that could be AI makers, it could be people in the business, it could be people in IT, it could be third parties. But you're going to have a team that can help build these automations because there will be more than 3. There's going to be, tens to hundreds for most of you of these automations that you do need to build if you want to be the apex automator. You want to think about automating both your back office, but also automating a lot of your customer-facing interactions. Don't just build automations for the back office. And then again, have a good understanding of the homology scale. I know a lot of you know what homology is. If you don't, just the scale that shows how much human and how much technology is involved in a process. You want to have a clear understanding for every one of those processes of where should it be on the homology scale. A T2, an H3, what's the optimum place? And then we can automate up to that optimum mixture of human and technology. So again, just think about the invisible skill of your organization being the apex automator in your industry. All right, to get there, one of the things to think about is going to be having a synthetic workforce, right? So you have human workforce, it's what is that synthetic workforce? What do all those automations or those agents add up to, right? So a great character for this would be Mr. Fantastic or Reed Richards. Reed Richards, probably one of the smartest, right, of any of the superheroes. He often wins just because he's able to outdesign, outbuild things that are needed in order to beat a villain. And so one of the things that he can really do is extend himself across whatever is needed. And so in the world of extending yourself, in our world to have that superhero capability, we would build agents. We would become orchestrator of agents. Okay, think about that a second, an orchestrator of agents. So when I go to work or in my life, I have 20 agents that help me do what I do, help me be progressive in my life. That is exactly what Rex Richards, or Reed Richards, or Mr. Fantastic would do, is he would find ways to build AI agents and tools to extend, right, his capability to be able to beat a villain. In this case, the villain might be just wasted time and wasted money. All right, so in this world of a synthetic workforce, right, when we think about kind of autonomous agents, I want you to also think not just synthetic intelligence. We have to start thinking robots as well, because robots, although not invisible, they are another form of physical intelligence, and they have an ability to get things done as well. So when we think of synthetic workforce, we're thinking about both what we think about AI today, but also robotics, right? That's the kind of synthetic workforce we're looking for. Again, we want this workforce to help us be apex automators, right? Capturing hours, speeding things up, improving efficiency, giving us a workforce that can scale on demand. So as revenue goes up, right, or as the workload goes up, a much easier ability to scale up to do that workload than what it would be if we just had humans and we just had to try to hire a whole bunch of people. We have a synthetic workforce that can hold institutional knowledge forever. In other words, it never leaves us like our workers might, and then when the workers leave, we lose institutional knowledge. Like that never happens with the synthetic workforce. Once it has skills, once it knows what to go do, it never loses that and never leaves us. All right, it lowers the overall cost of our workforce. So when I say that, I'm talking about revenue per employee, right, or revenue per workforce. If you look at what our revenues can be versus what our costs are, it can lower the relative cost of the workforce as a line item on the P&L. Obviously, this workforce works 24/7 as hard as it can. The more compute power we feed it, the harder it would work. All right, it's also very consistent. So humans, there are a lot of things that are wonderful about us. One of the things that's not so wonderful, we are not the most consistent people. Some days we have good days, we get a lot of good work done. Some days we have bad days. Some days we're not feeling well. Like we are not that consistent from a workforce standpoint, whereas the synthetic workforce is eminently consistent. Will it go off the rails every once in a while and hallucinate something? Sure, right, it will. Will it do that less than human beings? Yes, it will do that less. So anyway, a synthetic workforce, interesting thing to think about as far as an invisible skill. All right, if you look in chat, We are going to push the link to you to get a copy of these slides. So, those who have asked, you can download them. All right. Obviously, our next invisible skill comes from X-Men also. And we are now talking about Cerebro, or Professor X, Charles Xavier. He was actually the leader of the mutants. And so he was one of the central people that did everything to try to protect the mutants and help the mutants in the X-Men world. Cerebro had a real specific skill, which was being able to put on the helmet, this helmet, and then could see anything going on anywhere in the entire world. In other words, he could act as a sentinel or could do surveillance on anything in the entire world. So he's a great metaphor for this next kind of invisible skill that organizations can get value from, which is sentinel systems. So when I say sentinel systems, I'm talking about using AI tools to be able to watch over anything going on in an organization. If I say the word surveillance, people get, they don't really love that word, but it is the ability for AI tools to watch over huge amounts of behavior and information and results and monitor those and both do the analytics, but also notify us if there's anything we need to know. So I believe that every organization will have these sentinel AIs. It's just what they will be watching. You can build these sentinels, or you're going to be able to buy these sentinels. We already have a lot of money being spent on one of these sentinels in the world right now. So let me give you some examples of things we will watch over. One will be operations. So you will want an AI sentinel that will watch over everything about what you would call operations at your organization. It's watching over, looking for patterns, anomalies, disasters. It's doing predictive analytics in real time, trying to show you that your inventory is going to run out, right? It is a sentinel AI watching operations. Finances. This is already where the AI CPA and the accounting world is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build a real-time audit capability. It's called a DAS, a dynamic audit system. And so the DAS is a financial sentinel system, and we already have companies building these. So this is already happening. Maybe we just don't think about it this way. All right, we're going to have a sentinel to look over the workforce. And I'm not, hopefully not in a creepy way, right? But watching over what is everybody getting accomplished today, right? How many tokens did they use in AI tokens? Are they hitting deadlines that we need them to hit, right? All things like that. But we'll have a sentinel that watches over the workforce. We'll have a sentinel that watches over our market, whatever your market is. It's going to look at every competitor's website, tell you if anything changes on their website, everything about the industry. But you will have a market sentinel that every day is talking to your team, telling them everything it's finding online. All right, customer behavior. So a sentinel, especially if you have AI built into your products, but even if you don't, an AI tool will watch as much as it can watch your customers' behaviors and try to alert you to things that you might need to know. And then product performance. So again, if you sell products, to the extent that an AI tool can watch over the use of the products, what people are saying online about the products, how the revenue and sales of different products in different places is changing. So again, I'm just trying to give you an idea, but every organization is going to have AI sentinels. And again, this is a bit of an invisible thing. You're not going to be able to see the sentinels work. You're just going to see the output from the sentinels. And that output will be knowledge you've never had before, analysis you've never had before, so that you can make better decisions than you've ever been able to make before. You see how some of this all starts to tie together as far as value to the organization. All right, I'd love to tell you it's all good news. And everything I've told you so far, I'm excited about. I'm excited that for the next handful of years, we'll be building all of those systems and people's profits will be going up the results will be going up. It's going to be very exciting, okay? However, there is one fly in the ointment, and that is the villains. And if we're going to use a villain, I think Thanos is a very good villain to use for multiple reasons. So if you're not familiar with Thanos, Thanos was a very powerful villain that was able to, if you look at this gauntlet, be able to get these stones, and each of these stones had a different power. And so when all of the Infinity Stones were gathered and put into this gauntlet, then Thanos had ultimate power, and one of the first things Thanos did was kill half of everybody in the entire universe. First thing he did. And then it took 5 or 6 years to turn that around and get those people back. So think about adversarial AI. Another thing that's invisible to a lot of us is what digital criminals are doing with AI. So there is a term, adversarial AI, which means the way that criminals are using AI tools to try to steal your money, right, or cause you problems. And we're talking about many different kinds of criminals, some that are profit motivated, some that just want to create chaos, right, some from other countries. But it's important to understand that you are fighting against an adversary that has amazing AI power as well. Hence, why it's even getting to be a problem for AI makers to put out their really high-end models, because they're worried about what happens when criminals get a hold of high-end models. So, adversarial, we have to start thinking about risk control, right? So what are we going to do to control the risks from our adversaries getting AI? Again, just a few thoughts. Right? These are things like cyber attack tools, right? Highly sophisticated AI tools to improve their phishing schemes, their fraud schemes, ability to break into networks. Once they're in a network, the ability to move sideways and harvest data quickly, right? But there is a whole inventory of cyber attack tools now. We have business disruption attacks. So not even meant to extort money or anything else. Typically, this is what other countries are going to do. Other countries, their warfare departments are going to look more and more to, if I'm going to attack the US, the way to attack the US is shutting down their companies. And we'll use AI tools, AI weapons, to attack and shut down these organizations. And we're going to have to be able to defend against that. Even protests or reputation attacks, right, is something that they're going to use AI tools to do. So even when it's just they want to get people's attention, they will have AI tools that can do, take over big websites or take over things that are being done live just to be able to do their protests. Revenge is going to also be something that is done where, hey, it might be they disrupt your AI models. I mean, maybe it's an ex-employee, all right, or a current employee that's getting ready to leave, or maybe you did an M&A transaction and you pulled in some employees that absolutely do not like what's going on with this M&A. And so they're going to take revenge by polluting AI models that you have so that they give wrong answers. Like there are all kinds of interesting angles, right, that our adversaries are going to come at us with AI tools. Even things like manipulating society, manipulating pricing, manipulating what we see and what we believe, all driven by highly intelligent AI systems doing the manipulation. So there you go. I wanted to make sure we at least talk for a minute about that. I also really want to end with just making sure, everybody who's listening, everybody who listens to this when they play the video later, each of us has our own superpowers. So each of us can amplify things. Like I said, each of us has the ability to raise our effective IQ. Each of us can use AI tools to capture hours, to help us achieve goals that we've never been able to achieve before, maybe even create more balance in our lives, right? So it's important to understand that you can go get superpowers anytime you want to. You just have to be willing to put in the time and the energy. I saw these quotes over the last couple of weeks, and I thought they were both interesting, but I'll really focus on the bottom one. that what superpowers are doing is they are dropping the cost of doing things, building things, creating things, dropping that cost low, like almost to zero. But the value of knowing what to do, how to do it creatively, that's growing. So you saw that probably in this presentation, right? The value or the cost to create this presentation, not high. The understanding of what to even say to all of you in this update, the value of that is pretty high. And so, it's just something that I want you to think about, your own personal superpowers, is get the superpowers and drop the cost of doing work, doing things, do it faster, better. And then you can reinvest your time amplifying what is it that you're actually saying to people. All right, that was a lot. It was a lot of words, a short amount of time. I hope some of these concepts resonate with you. As always, we always send out the video afterwards so that you can share it with other people. Update 4 is all focused on workforce. So we're going to be talking about some really interesting concepts around how is the workforce evolving and how do you evolve it on purpose? How do we achieve a better humological balance? So a lot of really good information that I think is going to be for an update, futuristic, but also pretty practical. So just look forward to the next one 6-8 weeks out from now on the evolving workforce. All right, there you go. I hope you all go out and see some Marvel movies, go out and see some DC movies. I hope you, just got a little bit of fun from this, but also all of these ideas about superpowers. We have them, we just got to figure out how to use them well.